Strinova is going to be releasing in a couple more days. This is currently the 17th as of the time of recording this, so this video might come out today as soon as I'm done recording this. There are a couple things I need to say before we quickly start. However, one, every single character in the game is they're good in a way, so please don't think there's any bad characters in the game. Every single character I tried in beta, all of them are amazing. Two, the only way all of these characters are amazing is if you have communication. Without communication, every single character in this game, no matter if they're meta or even if to you some of these characters are terrible, some of these characters, or all of them actually, you will not strive with them. So even if I put a character in easy to master and be like, yeah, they're meta or they're very good, without communication they would still suck because your team isn't doing what they should do as well to help you out to win that entire game as well. It's a team-based game. Your team also needs to be communicating with you and also playing at least pretty decently with you to win matches. Take everything with a grain of salt and let's get straight into this, baby. So we're gonna go down the tier. We're gonna go to easy first, and then we're gonna go all the way down to hard to master. But first thing first, before we talk about easy, let me go ahead and put every single character in no ideal. These are characters that was not in the beta currently. Sadly enough, I will not be able to talk about these three characters alone. The red hair chick will be coming pretty soon around release as well, so be on the lookout for her. I will make a video on her pretty soon and say some of my thoughts about her as a character as a whole. But I do believe all three of these characters are out in the CN version, and if you have played the CN version, feel free to comment down below. I haven't played the CN version, so all of my experiences and all of my opinions and thoughts, none to which will be factual. I would easily admit I am wrong if I get something wrong in this video. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, basically. So first character that we're going to be putting up on the easy tier list is Lawen. Lawen is a character that is practically a UAV in the entire game. You will also play her in the tutorial the moment the game release. She's always been the first character that you will play whenever the game release, like in the first two betas, and I could even bet in the tutorial when the global release she will be the first character you will touch, and you will be pretty much going to use her kit. She is a UAV character. She has this knife ability where if you throw it, your entire team will be able to see enemies in that radius if the enemies is near that knife area. If they're not, you will not see the enemy. No threat, don't worry about too deep. Whenever you get your skill back, just use it again over there, right? Because she's a UAV character, if you have pretty good communication, she could easily work with other characters such as pretty much like Metherith and even Richie. But I can't remember if you could use Richie and Metherith on the same team. So I could be wrong, but if you are able to use those two characters on the team together, you pretty much do want to be able to use Lawen, because Lawen will be able to help both of these characters out, because both Metherith and Richie are visibility characters, but we'll talk about that later in a second. Now for Lawen Ultimate, I would say it is somewhat difficult to use for her, especially for a new player that's getting into the game, because some players I've seen new players easily use Lawen Ultimate, not strategically. They just have no idea how to play around with Lawen Ultimate, and it becomes a downfall on their part, which I don't really get angry at my teammate when they don't know how to use her ultimate. I don't either. But basically, you run in a straight line with Lawen Ultimate. I'll probably have a video on screen to just describe my statement on what I'm talking about. You'll run straight directly in the line, and the con about this and the huge issue is you can't use your gun in her ultimate. So the moment you leave her ultimate, like you get out from this blue wall, then you'll be able to use your gun. The issue is that if an enemy sees you coming out this wall and you don't see them, they could instantly just start shooting in direct, like I'm talking about in that middle line of where you came from if you try to go back in it, and it'll become an issue from there. But same time, you do want to use her ultimate pretty strategically, basically like especially if you know how to flank. She's a character for you. I would just say be very mindful about how you use Lawen Ultimate. There's not really too much I can say about it. I don't want to be like a broken record or be repetitive about it. It's pretty difficult to kind of master for a new player. That's all you need to know when you are using Lawen Ultimate. Next character we have is Audrey. Audrey is a character that uses machine gun, and she has a grenade launcher for her ultimate. First thing first, let's go ahead and get the big elephant out the way about her as a character and why she's easy to use. If you want to easily slowly get into Strinova, I highly recommend picking Audrey probably as one of the top 3 first characters in the game, so you could get used to what Strinova is all about. Audrey has a shield on her machine gun. She's the most beginner friendly character in the entire game. I'm talking about, it's so easy to use her, it's not even a joke. Most new players would directly shoot that shield on Audrey gun because that shield will protect you, and the moment it breaks, then you will start taking damage if the enemy is still trying to directly shoot you in the middle of the shoulder to head area. If the enemies aren't shooting you there, you will still take damage if they're shooting you directly like down in your lower body parts like your legs or arms and such, right? Even your body, right? So most new players will directly shoot the shield on her machine gun because they don't know any better, and this goes the same for her skill and her ultimate as well, because there are shields on her skill and ultimate as well, because her skill is pretty much, her skill and turret has a turret. So whenever you are fighting against the Audrey, I highly recommend, if you are able to break her shield in time, break her shield if you can, especially if you're a sniper character. I think it probably take like 2 shots or 1, or who knows. I can't remember how much damage the sniper character does to her shield, but if you're able to break it in time, then you'll be able to kill her. There is one thing you need to know, and I highly recommend you guys take note of this, or at least write it down somewhere. You can take Audrey out in her turret. Audrey has a 1 to 2 second delay before her turret is fully set up and that shield comes out. You can headshot her in time, especially as a sniper character, to kill her. There's like a delay for her, so that's like one of her cons. If you see an Audrey about to quickly go in turret form, take her out as quick as possible, especially if you're a sniper character. Another pro thing about Audrey and why she's easy to use is whenever you buy her after skill, she'll be able to move left and right with her turret and her ultimate as well. And it's pretty good because she'll be able to peek corners now instead of standing idle with her turret. So that's why I say she's a beginner friendly character, because her entire kit is just pretty easy to understand. So if you want an easy character to use, just use Audrey. And her ultimate, last but not least, I don't want to talk about this character before I talk about her. Her ultimate is a grenade. So whenever it's a grenade turret, so when you shoot grenades out from her turret, the moment it explodes, it creates a fire AoE radius, and then it'll burn any enemies directly in that area. But her grenade, the explosion itself does so much damage, I'm pretty sure they'll be dead before that fire AoE even comes out. So yeah, if you want an easy to use character, you don't even really need communication with this character. You could probably just solo an entire team. I'm not even kidding. Like, I soloed an entire team using Audrey before back in beta. You don't need communication with this character, but I would still highly recommend having communication, especially if you are using Audrey as a character. Next up, we have Michelle, and there's not really too much to talk about Michelle here, so I'll go briefly over her. Michelle has turrets, so all you're gonna do is set up like 2 to 3 turrets. I think you only have 2 turrets if I remember. I think if you buy another after skill, you'll be able to have 3. If I remember, I can't recall, but you'll be able to set up turrets on walls and or on the ground. It's a sticky like orb turret. I'll probably have a video to showcase it, but it's a turret, and her ultimate is a huge turret which does so much damage. I'm talking about, if you see a Michelle turret is out, no longer peek it. I promise you, stop peeking Michelle turret. This goes the same for Audrey, by the way. I want to make sure this is ingrained to any new player mind to never peek a Michelle or a Audrey turret. Okay, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know about Michelle and Audrey. They're so easy to use. I promise you, the more you use them in the game, you're gonna come back to this video and be like, oh shoot, Ari, you was right. Yeah, I was right. They're so easy to use. There's no difficulty at all using any of these 3 characters in easy. Next up, we have Fuchsia. Fuchsia, I would say, is a pretty easy character. I think some people in the CN community especially might be mad at me and say, well, she is actually somewhat difficult to use, but I will actually want to disagree. I do think Fuchsia is another very easy to understand character, and pretty straightforward is the issue here for most new players. So let's go ahead and talk about it, right? Her skill is a UAV of the sort, but it's only for her. So it's a selfish UAV, meaning only she could see it. So whenever she pop her skill, if there's any enemies in the nearby radius of her, then she'll be able to see like any enemies near her. The only issue is any UAV character, I think it goes the same for like Lowen as well, and this goes the same for Konami, is that enemies could tell that they're detected in game. But if I'm wrong about it, just know it is the case with Fuchsia. Every time whenever you go against a Fuchsia and they use their skill, it should say that a Fuchsia has detected you. So this is basically going to put any enemy on high alert, because now they know that there's an enemy nearby them. So it is somewhat kind of painful that they do kind of like give the enemy a freebie to let you know that, hey, you got pinged by Fuchsia. It does suck. Granted, it's still pretty good for most new players, because most new players will now be able to see what's the next enemy move whenever they have spotted them with her skill. Also for Fuchsia, okay, she is able to regain health as well whenever you are shooting enemies or even killing them as well. So she regains health, she can see enemies, and if you buy her at the skill, she can actually self-revive herself back as well. Not when she entirely die, but whenever she get knocked down, meaning whenever you're crawling around on the ground. But she can self-revive herself back up, which most new players don't understand that she has this mechanic for her. So this is why I'm putting her in easy tier, because when the game released, most people who's gonna be playing this game are new players. Not everybody have played the CN version of Strinova, so not everybody understand that Fuchsia has this mechanic for herself. Another thing is, for her ultimate, she is able to have increased fire rate, so she basically shoots more out of more of a insane advantage. And if you kill enemies and pick up their crystal, this extends her ultimate, if I remember, and this will also give her a free another chance at using her skill again, or I think it highlights enemies as well. I can't remember, but that is Fuchsia as a character. She's pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Like, if you read her kit, she's pretty straightforward as a character, so I do think she's a very easy character to master. And she's also a very good character. I would say she's beginner friendly. The only thing you need to worry about is whenever you detect enemies, because they will know you have detected them, so they're going to be on high alert. You should also be on high alert as well, and watch out for your next enemy move. This character, I would say, is pretty easy to understand as well as no bond. I don't even know how to say bro name, but just know it's the dude who has Kaneki hairstyle for a living. But anyway, right? So my bro Nobo, the dude with the Kaneki hairstyle, is able to pretty much basically give you armor regeneration and also increase your fire rate, if I remember correctly. And being able to regain shield in this game is pretty useful, because like most of the time you will catch yourself without a shield in the game. I promise you, when the game release, most of your matches you're gonna be wondering like, oh man, I kind of wish I had my shield regeneration back. And hey, for somebody like Nobo who could regain their own shield back, it's a good thing, especially if he's on your team, because if you see him set down this little like turret, this little tower thing that he has, all you gotta do is just stand in it and he'll be able to regain your shield back, but at a slow pace, if I remember correctly. And lastly, for the dude with the Kaneki hair, if you use his ultimate, it's pretty much just another UAV. That's all you really need to know. If there's an enemy nearby you, the moment you use this little tower thing, and if it scans and detects the enemy nearby you, you'll be able to see them. The neat thing about Bro is that he's able to teleport between his one another thing if you buy his active core passives. But if you don't want to buy his awakening, by the way, I should have mentioned this, it's awakening, not like the cores I'm talking about. But if you don't want to buy his awakening, where you could teleport between his little two tower thing, but instead want to be able to keep seeing enemies again, one of his other awakenings allow him to see any enemies that walk nearby his little tower sensor thing. So as a whole, he's a very interesting but a very good character. I would say like he's pretty easy to use and easy to master as well. But not a lot of people really played him. I don't know why. They probably didn't like the type of gun that he uses. I don't know. Who knows why they didn't use him. I think he was a very interesting and good character overall. For the next two characters, we have Yvette and Madalena. I don't know how to say. I'm gonna call her Maddie. So these two characters alone are debuff characters, interesting enough, but we're going to start with Yvette. Yvette as a character is a very interesting character because she uses this teddy bear for her skill, where if you do a slam attack, you could pretty much just create like this huge ice of a radius where enemies will start to slip and slide on, and this kind of messes them up, especially when it turns to coming to aiming as well. The issue with this is you're the one that's controlling this teddy bear, so you're kind of left idle, which kind of leaves her at a disadvantage, especially if a team fight goes off. So you're kind of in that team fight with her teddy bear, and then the moment you're done with that teddy bear, you will have to run, especially if the fight is across the map, you will have to run to all the way on the other side of the map just to get joined into that fight. And that is another reason why I kind of have Yvette kind of lower down at like the lower tier here. While she's easy to understand and master, it's also the simple fact that she has to get into a fight. So it's kind of like a 4v5 situation with her a bit if you're not very close to the fight where you're in control of the teddy bear, but it's okay. But it's okay because that ice helps out a lot. I can't remember if her own teammate could slide on the ice. I don't think they could slide on the ice, but even then, that ice, the slip and slide with that teddy bear is amazing. Her ultimate creates this huge like snow radius sort of thing. I can't remember. I'll probably have a video, but it slows down enemies and such. She's a pretty interesting character, easy to master. There's not really too much to really say about her as a character as a whole. For her kit alone, without talking about her awakening or anything, she's really easy to master and understand. For awakening, you could just buy something like you could throw snowballs at enemy, which I kind of find hilarious. But overall, easy to master character. Only issue, the big issue actually, is the simple fact that if you're in control of a teddy bear and you're away from the fight, you kind of have to run kind of towards half across the map just to join into the fight. Hopefully your teammate isn't dead by then. For Madalena, or Maddie, we're gonna call her, Maddie creates this paintball area where it's kind of similar to Yvette, but except for Matt case, she slows down enemies with her paint. And another interesting thing about this is if you splash the wall with her paint, she will go invisible. I can't remember if this is like a free thing that she could do or you have to buy it with her awakening. Regardless, it's pretty easy to master. You could go invisible if you paint the wall and such. I would say do beware, especially enemy team could be weird to start shooting the paint if they want to, but I doubt they will, especially considering the game is going to be new for most players, that most players would not have in mind that they could probably just shoot the paint and that you're probably hiding inside the paint or whatever, right? And the last thing about Mad is her ultimate is extremely useful. I'm talking about, if I could, like, if only like, you know, maybe if her playstyle wasn't like, you know, very specific in a way, but even then her playstyle is so easy. But only reason why I love her ultimate, I would say probably one of the few best ultimates in the game, which I should probably do an ultimate tier list, which her ultimate disables paper mode for the enemy team. And granted, I said earlier, well, probably I said earlier, but enemies will spam paper mode in this game. In this game, you need to spam paper mode like crazy. If you're not spamming paper mode like crazy, you're doing something wrong. So this prevents enemies from being able to go in paper mode to climb up walls and such. Her ultimate is a huge win for her own team. If a Mad pop her ultimate and nobody on the enemy team go down, something went wrong with her own team. They're selling, because Mad ultimate is useful. It tracks your movement, it tracks your steps, it disables your ability to be able to like go up walls in paper mode and such. Her ultimate overall is probably one of the few best ultimates in the game. It's very useful, and plus it also creates like it's also a visibility thing, so it creates this huge bubble where I think you can't see inside of it or even outside of it. I think you can actually see outside of it. I can't remember, or you have to probably buy that with awakening. But overall, a very great and amazing character to use. I highly recommend. I would say even top 3. I'll say top 3 characters you should play first when the game release. Easily one of my favorite characters. I loved maining her back in the beta. She's a fun character overall. And for the last 2 on the easy tier, we have Celestia and Ming. These will be the last 2 characters for the entire easy tier list. Yes, I know there's a lot of characters in easy tier. Granted, understand, Strinova is a pretty easy game. The more you play, it's not really difficult to learn any of the characters in the game. Celestia is pretty much a healer or a support type of character. That's all you really need to know. She's able to regain your HP and your armor back as well. Overall, I would say probably the first character I would probably say you should pick up, because I would say she's the easiest character to learn in the entire game. Not only when you give your own teammate HP and shield, it also comes back to you and you regain some of your HP and shield back. So you should be spamming her skill whenever like you have the chance to, especially if you and your teammate are low. You want to keep spamming it. You kind of don't want to hold on to it. You do want to spam it, especially if your team is in need of that HP or armor back. As for her ultimate allows her to teleport to not to another enemy, but to another teammate on the field. So if your teammate is across the map and you quickly need to teleport to them because that's where the fighting is currently taken at, then you'll be able to use her ultimate and teleport all the way over there. Reminder, I do think if you get shot during the teleportation, it will teleport you back to the original spot where you was at. So let's imagine this. So the moment you teleport to your ally, it does this auto animation above their head, and enemies can see this whenever you do teleport there. So the moment if an enemy shoots you, it stops that, it interrupts you basically. So if an enemy shoots you while you're trying to teleport to that exact location on top of your teammate, it will send you back to the original spot where you last used your ultimate at. So that's something you do need to keep in mind when you are using her ultimate, because it could easily fail you if you're not using it at the correct time. So this is why I say communication is important at the start of the video. You do need communication. And similar to Celestia, Ming is able to regain her own armor back, if I remember. So Ming has this special ability where she could shoot this orb out that slowly gradually go towards the enemy. If you shoot in a direction or any direction, wherever you shoot the orb at, it slowly goes towards that area and keeps going. So whenever you enter that orb, it increases your movement speed, if I remember correctly, but it will also damage the enemy as well a bit here and there. And you know, you'll be able to, like, especially if you shoot enemies, Ming will just regain her armor back if she lost any. And last but not least, for Ming ultimate, Ming will basically have this little temporary shield. So if you use her ultimate, she will regain her own temporary shield, which that is something you need to look out for. And whenever she shoots you, it stacks this slow effect. It stacks. It basically stacks. You're slowed down a bit. That's something you really need to truly look out when you're fighting against a Ming. Very easy and straightforward character. Pretty easy to use in game. For the last couple of characters, I'm just going to go briefly over them to not make the video any longer than it needs to be. So I'm going to give out the ports and details, kind of just like based on their playstyle or whatnot. So let's go and get right to it. So the next character we got is Baimo. Baimo, I would say, is a pretty difficult character to use, only because of his skill. He is a shotgun user. But back in beta, and my friend was complaining about when using them, is that the simple fact that it feels like he doesn't really do much damage as he should for a shotgun character. And if so, I do understand why maybe Strinova developers wanted to try to keep him balanced in a way. I haven't tried him out, so I necessarily can't say for sure if IMO damage is good or not. So take my word with a grain of salt. I'm only speaking off what my homies and friend have said from experience. The issue is with Baimo kit as a whole, for what I would say, is the simple fact that Baimo has this dash ability where he dashes here and there, like, you know, in front of him and such. You have to kind of play around that pretty smart. I would say that you shouldn't use it as freely as often. You should use it pretty smart, like ideally. So it does kind of, I feel like Baimo is one of those characters that requires some IQ play with him, especially with his ultimate, where you're able to pop his ultimate that protects you from truly dying. So you pop his ultimate, you could rush into a fight, shoot a couple enemies. If an enemy kill you, you teleport right back where your ultimate was left off, where you truly don't die. So it's kind of like a second life with Baimo in a sense. I don't know if his damage is really good, but his playstyle does require some IQ play. Like you need some IQ or intelligence behind it to back up Baimo playstyle. Next up, we got Medrid. Medrid has an interesting kit to her. She's able to fly in the air passively with her passive skill. She's able to create sandstorms, which if you buy one of her awakenings, she's able to make this sandstorm where the entire team, so like not only your team but the enemy team as well, have a difficult time really seeing anything outside and inside of it. So that is something to really look out for. I consider it a con if you don't have any characters that's like a UAV sort of character, like Lawin, Ushia, Nobo, and characters that's able to detect enemies somehow. So without characters that's not able to detect enemies on your team, it's kind of like painful if you're playing someone like Audrey, Michelle, maybe like Yvette. So it is something to look out for. So Medrid does require some sort of communication with your team here and there. So without communication, it can be a bit painful to play around with Medrid kit as a whole when she do buy her awakening, where she's able to create this sand dust storm and such. But other than that, she's able to make enemies fly. So not only that, like your team can fly in it as well, go in paper mode and such. As a whole, her kit is very interesting, but I say it requires also some IQ play as well. So I would say somewhat difficult, or characters that require some IQ play behind it. Like you can't just pick them up and be like, oh, I could just use you. You can't really pick up some of these characters in somewhat difficulty, even hard to master, and be like free, like as the beginner player, be fine with them. It does require basically turn your brain off. Basically, you need to have your brain on when using some of these characters. Next character that we got is Rechi. Rechi is a very interesting character, just like Method and Reggie are characters that handle things with visibility and such. So Reggie is able to place up a wall to cover your own team where like the enemy can't see you from the other side of the wall and such, which is a very interesting thing about it because your own teammate can't also see you on the other side of the wall as well, unless Reggie buys his awakening core or awakening skill where it makes him be able to see through the wall and you as well on your, if you're on his team. If you're not on his team, you wouldn't be able to see it even if he got the awakening. Like you're on an enemy team, you still cannot see it. So he could basically see you, but you can't see him basically. Now, issue is with the Reggie wall, I found it somewhat painful and I wish they do kind of fix it in a way where like it kind of like when you're not truly in a wall, if you just near it, sometimes it'll just randomly block your vision for no reason. You don't have to be fully in it. And this is something I was fully, this is something I kind of tested out a bit. And it's kind of annoying how you could be just kind of near it, but not in it. And it was just still kind of fog your entire vision on the screen and such. So it is kind of painful to play around with Reggie wall in a sense. It is very painful to play around with this wall. Also, he's another UAV character as well. So if you aim down the scope with Reggie, you gotta hold it down, you gotta let it sit for a while, and then he'll be able to like scan anything directly in front of him as well. So basically with his combo, you'll place down his wall. You'll kind of just like aim behind that wall to see if there's any enemies that's like, you know, behind or beyond that wall. If so, you'll be able to just kind of shoot them, and you'll see, like I said earlier, you can't see Reggie, but Reggie will be able to see you type of character. So yes, both Method and Reggie are like basically visibility characters. Like they'll make it in a way where you can't really see your screen as you should. So it's kind of like ideal to have characters like Lawin, basically Fuchsia, characters of the sort like that could actually genuinely play around with Method and even Reggie kit as a whole. Last but not least, for somewhat difficult to play for Strinova for some of these characters is Flavia. Flavia is an interesting character. So whenever you shoot her, she's able to go into her phantom orb or go into this orb fate like kind of state, and it will also kind of blind you and such. Flavia kit is very interesting. To be exact, I can't really say that she's a beginner friendly character. I wouldn't really recommend a beginner to pick this character. I would truly say once you're getting confident enough into the game to pick, kind of try out Flavia and see if she's, you know, if you're able to be confident with her, if you're able to play her, you know, her playstyle and such. Because the thing that's difficult about her is her playstyle. Really, her playstyle is not really beginner friendly. Like you go into this orb, kind of blind enemies and such. It's a very difficult playstyle to say the least. For our last two characters on hard to master are two sniper characters. These are the reason why I'm gonna put them in the last spot for hard to master. The number one reason why both of these characters are hard to master is if you're not confident enough in your shooting skill with sniper characters. This just goes in general, if SMG characters and such. So if you're not confident enough in your sniping abilities right now, please do not pick these characters. I don't care if like their skill is great at what they do or not. If you feel like you can't hit your hits with sniper characters at the moment, please do not pick them. Granted, to make you guys feel like you have a bit of hope, it does in the game, it does take like really 2 shots, right, to kill someone in the game with sniper characters. There's just body shots. If you take 2 shots in the body, they will die. If you're at least able to hit body shots, you will be fine. For headshots, it's kind of like an instant kill and such. Sometimes the enemy might survive. There have been cases and instances where I pick Konami or Kokomi, and where I do a headshot, the enemy still managed to survive somehow. And this part just depends on how much HP that enemy has as a whole. Now, the second reason why I say these characters will be hard to master, unlike machine guns, SMGs, or any guns that could have a fire rate to it, sniper characters are like 1 bullet at a time sort of thing. So in this game of Strinova, your enemy will constantly go into paper mode. And I mean constantly, which paper mode is string field in this game, or stringified or such, whatever, right? So remember that, right? So in this game, you want to spam paper mode like crazy. I probably said this earlier in the video, not too sure, but you do want to spam paper mode like crazy, like insane. So for characters like Okami and Konami, all people have to really do is just go paper mode against you and just constantly spam it, and you have a much more harder time generally trying to deal damage to them in paper mode, because remember, like, they're not like a big target anymore. They become more thinner in paper mode. So now for sniper characters, that's like much more harder to deal with, and you're forced to switch to your secondary weapon in the game to deal with that if you're the last person on your team alive, or you're just in a 1v1 situation, even if your team is alive. So that is something to keep in mind and remember. So that is the main reasons on why these characters alone are hard to master. It's not because of their skill, it's because of their playstyle. So there you have it. So let's go ahead with the first character here. Right, Kokomi. Kokomi is a supported character like Celestia. Both of these characters are able to heal one another. So with Kokomi is able to revive her own teammate with her ultimate. Except in her ultimate form, she's pretty idle, so you do want to make sure you're not using this in the wide open area, like you're in front of an enemy, be like, oh shoot bro, I'm about to quickly revive you or something. You want to make sure you're behind a wall or something where enemies can't see you, and then pull off that revive, because it does take a second to go off with that animation. And I have no idea if you could animate like if you could cancel animation or whatever while trying to do it and still pull off the revive with your get your team back into the fight and such. And for her skill, it's a healing drone, all around just a healer character. She's very great at what she do. The only time when I say not to pick her is if you're not confident enough with the main reasons I said earlier for hard to master characters. This goes the same with Konami. Konami is a character that pretty much debuffs the enemy team. She's a UAV character and debuffs the team. If you use her skill, you'll be able to do like a sniper shot where you can shoot at a wall or something, and if they're in that radius where the bullet is at, it would do like a little scan in that little vicinity, and then you'll be able to see if enemies are in that area or not. She's basically another UAV character of the sort. And for her ultimate is the crowd control area where she gathers up enemy, it slows them down, it glitches, and I mean like it messes with their vision like crazy as well. Another visibility, so the character of the sort, it messes their vision up. Granted, she's a very strong character as well in the game. Issue is, like I said earlier, a lot of people are just going to keep spamming paper mode or use their Strinova like crazy. So even if you buy like Strinova damage or something, they're still going to use their paper mode like crazy. It's going to be pretty hard to hit them if you're not very good at hitting your shots with sniper characters of the sort. And that just sums up about the entire tier list for easy to use, maybe hard to use characters in Strinova. Like I said, for the last three in No Ideal, these characters was not in the beta test at all, so I can't really have any comment about them. I don't even know if they're elite characters or not as well, but they shouldn't be, because I do believe they're in CN right now currently. But let me know if you guys agree with this tier list. Do you guys agree with my tier list? Do you guys disagree? Do you guys think that some of these characters are better to use? Or maybe some of these characters that I put in easier or somewhat difficult? Let me know. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, I will be doing so much, like I will be making Strinova content like crazy. So if you enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful and you mess with what I do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in another video soon.